But then we have something else in the corporate world that you were asked on After Dark yesterday, weren't you, Tom?
Yeah, well, they were just asking about all the situation going over at Warner Brothers, and we didn't have Mikey as a correspondent, but there's a lot of moves and shakes going on over at Warner Brothers right now, and Script Doctor and I had an interesting conversation a bit about it. Because I mean, there's kind of a, I mean, well, of course, we were just talking about the media earlier, especially CNN and stuff like that. But there's always been this kind of one-sided fight in Hollywood when it comes to they'll make excuses till the cows come home for Disney, right? As far as any losses or issues they're having, but they've been coming after Zaslav hard since he took over. We've dubbed him like the Trump of Hollywood at this point.
Yeah,
Now,
pretty much. They
to be
want to see him
clear,
fail.
we don't agree with everything he's done. I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, Andre, but I mean, he's had some moments where he's done some stupid shit. He's had to walk back some stuff with Turner Classic Movies, and the home video department's still a big fucking mess. The television is still needs some fixing, but now there's been this talk about splitting the company up. There's been talk about all this other stuff going on, and basically what Script and I came to the point of is what really hurt Zaslav, and it says right here that their shares plummets Thursday, taking 9.1 billion impairment charge on the decline of its linear business and uncertainty around the NBA rights. Yeah, because there's this deal going on with the NBA rights now. Script's understanding of it is they should be able to sue in the future and possibly get themselves out of this deal because it's a breach of contract. But that being said, as I've been hearing for the longest time, it feels more like to me David is setting the company up to acquire probably CBS or something like that after the whole Skydance Paramount thing is done with. So I'm curious what you guys think about it, because CBS would come with a fat NFL deal.
Well, I mean, my take on it is the language that the press use when they say things like plummet. It went down 0.28%.
Yeah.
Plummet. It plummeted.
No, Disney's stocks has been plummeting.
Correct. And then the other thing that I'm interested in is, I mean, at $7, how many shares are there of Warner's out there versus Disney at $90? Like, what's we're not talking apples to apples here. So again, the language is hilarious.
And he also
28% dip, plummet. It's a plummet.
He also took on the company when it already had at least a quarter of a decade's worth of problems already.
Yeah, and he was brave enough to pull the bandage off the scab and write down billions of dollars worth of stuff, right? I mean, he's getting rid of the pain quickly. Yeah, and he's going to get punished for it. I mean, for day traders out there. So yeah, it's not doing well, but I mean, they do have other businesses.
Yeah, and they did make a deal on one of the movies that was looking at getting shelved for tax reasons, and that was not the Coyote and Acme movie, but the other
Batman.
Tunes. No. Oh. The Looney Tunes one, the Porky and Daffy one, got picked up by Ketchup Entertainment. So that is going to get released, the fully animated one.
And we are thankful that Amazon picked up the DEI woke Batman.
You know who is thankful for that? David Zaslav, because it means that he was actually able to make a profit on that production that otherwise would just have been a drain on the company.
Yep.
Because here's like the thing, it was already in motion, it was already getting done. The costs devoted to making it had already been spent. So he had two options. Do I put this on Max and sour the Batman brand identity for absolutely no profit at all? Or do I sell it to someone else at the price point where I actually profit from this thing? It's still not going to be good for the brand, but hey, J.J. Abrams is going to get blamed for it. And Amazon.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to say
Exactly what he did.
you want to be a little bit more clear on that whole Batman thing. Like, I think they rejected all of JJ's projects, and that's what he went to shop around. But the Batman was the only one that found a buyer.
Yeah,
because he had like 2 or 3 projects that they let him take. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's part of his deal.
Yeah.
But no, and the other thing is like, you know, people are coming after him over like the shelving of these films and writing them off for taxes. Because like after that one announcement, it was either yesterday or the day before with the Looney Tunes thing. Of course, all the people were freaking out again. And look, there's a lot of people under this conspiracy idea that Zaslav is trying to keep people from seeing this movie somehow, and he's more than willing to lose money on it, writing it down on taxes, than actually selling it to somebody. And I'm just sitting here going, do you realize how stupid you sound? No offense, but that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. There's only 2 reasons in the world why David Zaslav wouldn't release this movie. 1, he's not going to make enough money on it to sell it, which is what happened. So it's probably going to get shelved and written off as a tax write-off. And 2, that the movie was so bad that they decided not to release it in the first place.
Right.
And I know for some reason people have it in their head, just because of shit they've heard, that it supposedly had some test screenings and it tested great. And you've got all these people that worked on it talking it up. Well, guess what? I remember a little project called Batman v Superman that had the same shit around it. In fact, that thing got standing ovations in the test screening. We see how well that worked out, right, guys? Look, and I don't know for sure if the breakdown I got for the Coyote Acme movie was real or not, but it does match up and line up with a lot of other stuff I've heard and other takes that I took it for real. And in that case, it basically told me everything I needed to know, and that you have a problem, and that is you have a movie with a concept that only lasts for about 5-10 minutes, and then the rest of the movie is a guy who has whose co-lead cannot talk. Okay? He doesn't talk. He talks through signs instead of actually bringing in somebody to do the voice like they should have, because it's like somebody at Warner Brothers forgot that Wile E. Coyote used to actually talk until he got into the Roadrunner cartoons. He was super genius, Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah,
remember?
Morning, Bill.
Yeah, well, that was the wolf. Those were actually 2 different characters. Yep. The wolf had a red nose, and that was the sheep.
That's right. Yep. I thought he looked like Wile E. Coyote.
But Wile E. Coyote first was introduced. He was Wile E. Coyote, super genius. And then he quit talking as soon as they got shoved him into the Roadrunner cartoons, because at that time, Chuck Jones knew that it would translate in any language as long as he didn't talk.
Meep, meep.
Exactly. That's the only words in any of them except for signs, which can easily be reanimated.
Exactly. Or
Chuck Jones was a genius.
Very, very true. And also, just to add to what you're saying there, and this goes to say how Zaslav isn't going to let to basically accept a bad deal, which is probably something that drives Hollywood nuts and reminds them even more of Orange Man Bad. No, that's exactly right with this whole Acme situation. The reason no one else has picked it up is because in order to sign off on selling it to someone else, Warner has to have their entire outlay covered, and they're going to have to have a nice profit on top, because otherwise they're not going to sell it off. Consider what Disney did with Sound of Freedom last year. They sold that movie to Angel Studios at a loss. Then Angel Studios turned it into a massive hit. And Disney looked like idiots because they basically handed them the movie for free. Handed them all of that sweet box office cash. Zaslav is not going to tolerate a situation like that, which means that whoever wants to buy that movie, they have to pay full price for it. And if they're not willing to do that, well, then he is better off taking a tax credit or tax write-off on it than to sell it at a discount and see someone else doing something and turn it into a hit at his expense. That's not happening.
And I would like to see it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the cost that is required for him to be able to sell it off is so high that none of the other studios, and they've all seen it, all the other studios that were interested in picking that movie up, they have seen it. And they've decided that, no, we're not going to profit on this. It's going to have a good opening weekend, and then it's going to fall off a cliff. because just like the current M. Night Shyamalan movie, it's a 20-minute good movie or 20-minute skit, and then the rest is pure filler that only detracts from those first 20 minutes.
Or
And
the
that's
last
why
20
no
minutes
one,
in this case, but yeah.
either way, that's why no one has bought it. It's not worth it for them. They can see, okay, fine, so we have to pay 80 million for that. This is not worth 80 million to us, or 100 million or whatever. It's not worth it to them.
They were
And that
only
is why
asking
you're probably
70,
never
which
gonna see
isn't
the
even that
movie.
much. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but the same thing. It's too much for them for them to spend, because they can see that with the quality of the movie, it's just not worth it for them. Because when released into an audience, it's going to get exposed really quickly.
Here's an interesting side story where we talk about this stuff all the time, and we have also talked about the destruction of the profit centers, alternative profit centers like DVD, and before that VHS, right? I mean,
Yeah, the second market revenue.
the second market, they've completely screwed up their opportunities with their drive towards streaming, and then how they handled streaming in such a stupid manner, which they still are. But what's interesting is my son, who is not interested in this stuff at all. Okay, and you could probably represent him as an educated online person, a normie. You know where he got educated about this entire cycle that's changed? Hot Ones. He was watching a Hot Ones video with Matt Damon talking about how there's no more profit.
Yeah, that's a great clip.
Without an opening. So movies have to open well, and then that's it. And so I'm going, wow, my son learned about this entire industry watching Hot Ones.
Yeah, that's a great interview, actually. And he actually talks about how the DVD boom saved a lot of things and made a lot of those movies from his era.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of movies that deserved saving too.
Yep.
I mean, that's people.
Well, I think he specifically brought up like how Rounders was profitable because of the video and stuff like that.
Oh, and Rocky Horror Picture Show died in the theaters.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, again,
but then it became one of the biggest selling videos of all time. Go figure. But that's because they waited 15 years to put it out on tape.
Highlander made more money.
Yes.
In VHS.
Well, that's why we got a sequel. Yep.
Yeah. Then so again, we have to be careful when we discuss outliers, whatever.
Outliers, yeah.
Yeah, outliers are not the rule. We love bringing them up, but there's a million films that deserve to die, both in the theater and on VHS.
Right. Well, and my whole point with the whole thing was, as Andre's correct, all the studios and streamers got a chance to look at the movie. There was some story going around that they weren't allowed to bid more than once or change their bid or something. I don't even buy this story. It sounds like nonsense to me. But basically, it sounds more like nobody was willing to give them the amount of money they wanted. Andre's right about that. I don't know how much this movie cost overall, but my guess is it had to cost somewhere in the $40-50 million range for them to want at least $70 million to profit on it at the end of the day. And they couldn't get that much, which means they get at least $40 million probably in tax write-off, which will barely cover the cost. But yeah, I'd love to see the movie. It's not like I want to see it get, shelved and never seen the light of day, but it's not our choice, right? And right. Zaslav is doing, and I trust him to a point where this was the guy smart enough to shelve Batgirl, right? Like I can't believe anybody else in Hollywood would have had the balls to do that. And a lot of the flack he gets is from that situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing to keep in. Sorry, carry on, Tom.
Well, I was just say, don't get me wrong. I'd like to believe that the movie was going to be good just because Michael Keaton's in it, but from everything I've seen and heard, I don't think that's the case.
Well, how good did he make The Flash?
Well, and that's just it. We knew that and you and I have reported this from the start, and I still stand by it, that all Batgirl was meant to do, along with The Flash, was set up the DCU going forward.
Yeah. And that's what Zaslav killed off, and he did it because he has to produce a dividend for the shareholders, and that's kind of like what he's getting flack for right now. That's what the industry is attacking him for. Where's the dividend? You need to create some more value for the shareholders here. It's funny. I do not see any such headlines when it comes to Disney. Where's the
Exactly.
calls for Disney to make money for their shareholders? Now, this shows the
Yep.
unbelievable two-tier reporting.
That's what
Because
I was
from
talking
David
about.
Zaslav, yeah, there's pressure to deliver value for shareholders, but he does. It's going to take a while, considering how badly the company has been mismanaged before, to turn around that there can be the kind of dividend that the company would want. But just notice, when was the last time you saw a headline like this for Disney? When did
Never.
Deadline Hollywood write about pressure on Bob Iger to deliver value for shareholders? No, that was framed like the evil Nelson Peltz is launching trying to force his way onto the board. That's how they covered that. So it's very interesting double standard.
Yeah, or double standard. Yeah. And I agree with it. That's and look at what David's done. Look, like I said, I don't agree with everything he's done, but if you guys go back to my reporting, I don't know if Paul was here with us yet, but when I was telling people what his plan was, has he not done exactly what I said his plan was going to be? Start with DC, then Harry Potter, and then move down the line of the most important things in the business?
Agreed.
That's pretty much what he's done. And now he's evaluating all the television channels and what works and what doesn't. As far as Cartoon Network, I know it's a big deal that people are all upset that they pulled down the website, but you go to the website now and it sends you straight to HBO Max. But I guess the Spanish version is still up. And my understanding of that is probably because they probably just had clips and stuff all over the site, and he just wants you to subscribe to HBO Max now because majority of that stuff is on there, right? That's the situation right now. So
yeah, we begrudge, not begrudge, but it's sad what's happened to all our favorite cartoons, but and it is what it is, right?
And there's like the thing, the moves that he has done, they take some time to have full effect.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And I have very little, of course, you never know. It's always a crapshoot. But I do believe that the moves he has made inside of the next 2 years are going to be profitable. Especially the thing with James Gunn's Superman. If that clicks, that's a big if, of course, but if that clicks, that's going to be a huge thing. That's going to create interest in DC.
And Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, of course. The merchandising of both of them. I mean, stuff like that single-handedly can turn the company around if you can make them click. And again, this is something that Zaslav even said, that this was super-duper important for him, because DC, their releases alone should be able to carry the rest of the company.
Well, and I'm glad he realizes that, but he also needs to turn around and realize that Warner Brothers was built on the directors, which he has. He's been really trying to get all those directors back they lost and new people in, right? And not only that, he also needs to learn that there were smaller movies that helped make Warner Brothers what it was too. It wasn't just these big blockbusters all the time. Yeah, they had their Batmans and they had their Matrixes and their Harry Potters. But Warner Brothers was also the company that made Police Academy, right? Like, so you got to remember, these guys also knew how to make small comedies that made a lot of money, and those also helped bankroll the bigger films, or at least cover their losses on some of the bigger stuff that they didn't always make their bank back on. Because, I mean, Warner Brothers, for a while there, they were kind of the king of from the 80s into the 90s, it was like a battle between Paramount and Warner Brothers. Disney wasn't even a contender until the 90s again. Like, they were pretty much out for the count. And that's another thing that they're afraid of. And this is something Script brought up last night, is Hollywood is deathly afraid of Warner Brothers taking the top of the mountain again. Because if they do that, then that's where everybody will start doing what Warner Brothers is doing instead of doing what Disney is doing.
Interesting. So Script said that, eh?
Yeah, and I agree with him, because that's kind of how things were. Like in the 80s, it was a tit for tat with Paramount and Warner Brothers as far as who was the big man on the block.
Right.
Disney couldn't even fucking get a hit. It wasn't until Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Little Mermaid and Three Men and a Baby where they finally really started getting themselves out of a hole. Yeah, they had Splash and a few other hits with Touchstone before that, but the 80s were a desert for Disney. Like, they didn't have shit outside of Touchstone. And technically Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a Touchstone movie, but it had the animation side, so it actually put the animation team to work at Disney. So you had basically both sides of the company working on one feature at one time. And it was a make or break feature for the company. It was like, if this don't work, Disney is done. Like, and there was a point where if Culture was here, he'd tell you, I can't remember the guy's name, but at that point he was going to piece off the company and sell it off. Like, if that had all happened, Disney, like all the characters would have probably been owned by Sony or somebody else. And then the movie catalog would have been owned by Paramount or something like that. It would have been a mess. And all Disney would have been like RKO and Republic Pictures and all these old movie studios of the past that are nothing but a movie studio of the past, basically. Yeah. Then Eisner came in and basically cleaned things up. Yeah. And that's kind of what Zaslav has to do now, is what early Eisner did to Disney. Find some things that work, get the things that made their company what it was working. And then when that's happening, then you start to expand and build out. And that's when they acquired like Miramax and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And, if he succeeds in that, which I hope he will, you know what he has to do afterwards when that is done?
What's that?
Have lunch?
Well, he can have a big lunch and a huge exit party on his way out the door, because then it's time to leave.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to stick around that long.
No, because then he will have fixed the company. And then it's time to learn from basically what Eisner did right, which was fix the company, and then realize that his strategies were right for that. Now it's time for someone else with a different vision that is more aligned to, here's a company that is newly fixed. Now, how do we take it to the next level?
Yeah, because what Eisner did.
Yeah, like Eisner, he's a fix-em-upper,
he scared off all the people that helped him make Disney successful again. That was the problem.
Yeah, he stayed too long, and that's what Zaslav can't do. He can't overstay his welcome. This is like the thing with CEOs. There's a reason why they have limited lifespans as CEO, and Bob Iger has stayed way too long, and it's to the detriment of his company. There was a time when he was the right person. I'm not disputing that.
Yeah,
but then he overstayed.
Yeah, Eisner should have turned it over to Katzenberg or something like that, and that's where he screwed up. Because then Katzenberg went over to make DreamWorks with Spielberg and all those guys, and then was a direct competitor with Disney, and that's Shrek and all that stuff came out of that. But anyway, that's
our understanding is that Katzenberg was pretty pissed.
Oh yes, he was, because he thought he was being groomed to be the next in line, and when he found out Eisner was sticking around, he's like, well, this, because he basically helped. Because here's the story how it goes. Eisner and Katzenberg and all their little group of team, they made Paramount the big competitor to Warner Brothers in the 80s. They were the ones responsible for making Eddie Murphy a star and all that kind of stuff. And then they moved over to Disney, revamped Disney, and Katzenberg thought, being the young buck, he was going to be the next in line. When he found out Eisner wasn't going anywhere, he's like, well, screw this. And he went and started his own company with David Geffen and Steven Spielberg, which became DreamWorks,
right?
Which exactly we know how that went from there. So, yeah.
This clip was taken from Midnight's Edge in the Morning, which streams live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Midnight's Edge main channel. There, you can send in your live questions and comments before clips and full stream replays are uploaded to Midnight's Edge live archives. We are also on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, and Facebook, so smash that like, help share, subscribe, and join us.